Well, Jim, you've had a good 10 days on the grass with the boys. Peter was in there, and just before you came in, talking about how the message that you've been putting over has been really clear, which is probably what the boys need just now. How beneficial have you found it?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, of course, it's been a very good period of time since the Livingston game for me to spend as much quality time with the players as possible. Of course, as a club, we would have much preferred to be involved in the fixtures at the weekend and in those cup ties. But for me personally, since coming in, it's been a very busy couple of weeks. The Aberdeen and Livingston game back to back came around very, very quickly. It didn't really allow me or the rest of the staff to spend as much time as we would have liked on the grass with the players. So this break that we've had, this mini break, has been hugely beneficial, and the players' attitudes to everything that we've been asking of them has been exactly where it needs to be. A lot of players at other clubs, and the lads will have friends who are at other clubs who will have had last weekend off and maybe even 3 days off. But full credit to the boys. We told them that we didn't have that luxury, that we had to come in and we had to work hard, and they totally understood it. There was no toys out of the pram or anything like that. They were completely on board, and they all agreed that we shouldn't be looking for time off at this particular period in time. It's too important, far too much at stake, and their attitude and application in what we've delivered to them has been exactly where I would like it to be, and hopefully now that reflects in the performance on Saturday and in the weeks ahead.
I mean, I don't know what you found the mood to be like among the group when you came in. I would imagine confidence might have been an issue or whatever, but since the draw at Livingston, have you noticed a slight change? Is the mood? I mean, sometimes it can take just a little thing just to turn the fortunes around or get things to start moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and yeah, I mean, it's fair to say that the run of defeats that we were on prior to the Livingston game was a concern, and I think whenever you're in that situation, it's important just to stop the rot. We were pleased with the point at Livingston, albeit going into the game we were wanting to go and get all 3 points, but it's a point on the board. It takes us that little bit closer to the teams above us, which is important. But you talk about the mood in the camp. I mean, the guys were obviously low on confidence. None of them are satisfied with their own individual performances or collectively as a team. The consistency hasn't quite been there, but there's nobody in the group that is not fully committed, and I think that's the most pleasing thing for me. Every training session, sometimes when you come into a team that's languishing at the bottom of the table, you can maybe see one or two bad characters within the group that have maybe playing a part in morale around the place, but I don't see that at all among this group, and that's the thing that probably surprises me more than anything else. There's definitely quality there. I think everybody can see from the outside looking in, on paper there's some very, very good talented players within the group. For whatever reason, it just hasn't quite clicked yet, but we still have time. With 10 games to go, a lot of football to be played during that time, and we're still within touching distance of the teams above us. So for me right now, it's about trying to get the guys a little bit fitter, a little bit sharper, a little bit more self-belief, trying to make us a bit more organised structurally on the park, and that's been the message over the last kind of 8, 9, 10 days, and they've been very receptive. So hopefully, that'll be there for everybody to see on Saturday against St Mirren. Talk is cheap. I can sit here and talk till we're blue in the face about this exercise and that exercise that we've done. We have to go and show it when it really matters, and that's on the match day.
I mean, you often hear managers talk about when they've been on a bad run, they'll say they're not worried about the performance, they'll take a scrappy win, or all it could take is a ball, a bounce off somebody's back and go into the net, and that can be the catalyst to change in fortune. Do you think that Behet's equaliser at Livingston could be the moment, the spark that just ignites things again?
I do, yeah, and I hope it is. I mean, even against Aberdeen, we deserved our overall performance. If you watch the game back and you look at the stats from the game, our overall performance warranted at least a point, in my opinion. I don't think, unfortunately, when you're down there near the bottom of the table and confidence is low, you tend not to carry a great deal of luck in those situations. And against Aberdeen, we had 2 or 3 very, very good opportunities at 0-0. Jay Gorter makes a great save, in fact, in a 1v1 early on with Stephen Fletcher. If that goes in, if it falls a little bit kinder to Fletch and we find ourselves going 1-0 in front, then it could have been a completely different outcome. We've created enough chances, I think, in the last 2 games to give us that bit of hope that we can score goals. What we have to do better is clean sheets. We have to try and defensively as a team, not just as a backline, as a team we have to be that little bit better, and in those key situations, and not be kicking ourselves, instead of the teams having to, the opposition having to score brilliant goals. There's been moments, not just since I've came in, but prior to that, where a lot of the goals are avoidable. So we have to get back to that being hard to beat. And as you said, in the situation that we're in, the results are far more important than the performances. And if we were able to grind out a really stuffy, not very entertaining 1-0 win against St Mirren on Saturday, then I think I speak for everybody connected to the club that we would all take that, because, as I say, the points are more important than the performance right now.
And just a final one from me, just your team news, and can we expect to see Ryan Edwards back in the starting lineup this weekend? Ryan's
reaction to coming out of the team has been exceptional. He's very understanding of it. Sometimes you have these difficult conversations with players, and they tend to be drawn out, and the player are often arguing their case, and there's not always an agreement. But Ryan is an honest big guy who realises that his performances haven't been at the levels that he's capable of. And sometimes, I've been in that situation myself as a player, where you're used to playing regularly, but you're going through a bit of a difficult period, and sometimes coming out for a game or two can have a real positive impact. And I certainly have seen that in training with Ryan. His attitude to training has been excellent. He's still being the leader of the group. Before the game against Livingston, he wasn't hiding away in the corner, keeping himself to himself. He's well aware of how important this is to everybody and how big a part he's going to play. And the fact that he was out of the team against Livingston, doesn't mean that he's not going to feature at some point on Saturday. He's not bombed out completely. He's still going to play a big role between now and the end of the season, and it's going to take everybody in the squad to be on board and to be fully committed, because if we do stay up, then it's going to be a very much collective effort.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, how is Dylan Levitt's injury, and is there any more news in terms of how long he's likely to be out?
Well, I'm hoping to have some confirmation tomorrow with the medical team. Dylan's seen a specialist this week. There wasn't a great deal, in terms of how the injury came about against Aberdeen. It wasn't a bad tackle. It was quite innocuous, really. He has got a leg brace on now, so if you did see him, you might think it looks a hell of a lot worse than it actually is, but that's very much a precautionary method that the physios adopt now. So I'll know more tomorrow. We're keeping our fingers crossed that it's not going to be too extreme, and if it is, hopefully only a couple of weeks, that would be great. If we could plan to have him back for the split, that would be brilliant. But we just need to play it by ear. It's an opportunity for somebody else. We've got decent players in the midfield area, and we'll just need to wait and see what the time frame is on that. And
Glenn Middleton, what's the sort of latest on him?
Glenn, again, unfortunately, has had a bit of a stop-start season, particularly recently, where he tweaked his hamstring. He tried to play through the pain barrier against Ross County, and probably set himself back a little bit by doing that. I think it's testament to him as a boy that he realises how important this particular moment is, and he wants to try and help the team, but I think he's maybe done a little bit more damage. So we're not going to rush Glenn. I don't want to put a time frame on that one. Ideally, if I could have him right for those games after the split, that would be fantastic. In terms of Peter Pollard, Peter joined back in with the group this week, and he's looked really, really good. He's looked sharp. He's obviously not at the fitness levels required, or where we would like him to be, due to the injury. But we'll assess him tomorrow, and he'll certainly be a part of the squad on Saturday if he comes through tomorrow's session.
And you've said yourself on paper, looking at Dundee United, it's difficult to understand why they are where they are. But now that you've been in for a couple of weeks, are you any further forward in understanding where the problems lie for Dundee United?
Listen, I think I've not been long out of being a player. That I've not forgotten what it feels like when you've got change of manager, and I'm the third manager of the season, which is not ideal for anybody. It's not ideal for the club. It certainly wouldn't have been what the board of directors would have anticipated at the beginning of the season when they appointed Jack Ross. But unfortunately, results haven't been good enough, and a couple of managers prior to me have unfortunately lost their jobs. So that's the industry that we're in. It's very much a results-driven business, and the manager, more often than not, is accountable for that. So I think that lack of stability has probably had an impact on the players. I think you've got 3 managers in one season giving 3 different messages. Sometimes your head is boggled by all of the information that you're given. So I've come in the last couple of weeks and I've really just tried to strip everything back, tried to simplify everything, just try and get back to basics, not overloading them with information. There's no time now for me to bed in a real football philosophy. That's pre-season, that's what that's all about. I've got 10 games to get as much points on the board as possible to ensure that we survive, and for me it's about working as hard as possible on the training pitch. I still think we can get fitter. I still think every player in the squad can get that little bit fitter and that little bit sharper over the next couple of months. So that's my job right now, and I've seen a great reaction from everybody within the group, and not just the players or the staff. The support that I've had from the people upstairs, the board of directors, the chairman in particular, Luigi Capuano, who's making themselves available at every time to me. If there's anything that I need, doing their best to make sure that it's done. And they've even made, albeit the playing budget was long spent, they've actually made a bit more finances available to me if there was a player out there that became available. As you all know, it's not the time of the year that you want to be signing players because due to fitness issues and everything else that goes with it. But the fact that they've willing to dig deep again to try and support the team and to make sure the club stays in the Premier League is a great credit to them, and that support has been greatly appreciated up to now, and the fact that they've given me the trust and the belief to turn things around here is certainly given me a great lift as well.
And looking at the squad you've got, do you feel you might need to add to that? You might need to go into that market before the end of the season, and if so, are you close to identifying anyone? Well,
the fact that the money has been made available is great, but I'm not willing just to spend it for the sake of spending it. If I am to bring in a player, then it would need to be a player of better quality than what we've already got, and there isn't a great deal out there. Players available at this particular moment in time have not kicked the ball since January, more often than not. So we are scouring the market, and we are keeping an eye out in case there is one rough diamond out there that hasn't been snapped up. But the likelihood of somebody coming in is unlikely. But I do believe that there's enough here in the squad to get the job done. And we've got a terrific academy here as well. Historically there's always players coming through, and there's 3 or 4 players at the moment, under 18s training with the first team squad, that are pushing for a place in the team now, and that's I would hate to bring in an experienced player and block up that pathway for those kids coming through.
And obviously there's some players out on loan, young players, and among high profile ones, Tony Watt. Is there any chance, or is it a possibility to recall anyone from loans?
No, not out with the window. No, the loans are done, so we can't do anything with regards to that. I mean, obviously Tony's a good player. He's contracted, I think, for next season as well. I think he was probably getting a bit frustrated with the lack of game time when he was here. So he's gone to work with a manager who knows him inside out, in Stephen Robinson. But obviously Tony won't be allowed to take part on Saturday, which is a good thing because he is a good player. But no, we're keeping an eye on all of the young lads who are out there at the moment playing in all of the lower leagues. Kai Fotheringham is one who the club called back in January. He was having a fantastic season at Stirling Albion, and I'm delighted that they did, because I see bits in Kai that I think can be of huge benefit to the team going forward, and hopefully he'll get more game time. I thought he made a significant impact in the game on last Wednesday against Livingston.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi Jim, on the subject of Peter Pollock coming back, you must be absolutely delighted for him, and just speaking to him there, he's fresh, he's hungry, he's raring to go again, almost like signing a new player.
Yeah, definitely. I've always admired Peter from afar. I've never had the chance to work with him as closely as what I'm doing now, but I've always recognised the talent that's there. Injuries have been a bit of a setback for him, and it's about Peter now trying to remain fit for the next 10 games, and not be in and out of the team. So we have to take a calculated risk with Peter at this particular moment in time. If this was 10 games in to the season, then I would probably be looking at it a little bit differently. I'd be, making sure that he's 100% fit before coming back into the group. But because of the situation we find ourselves in, we might need to roll the dice with one or two players at the moment who are, feeling little knocks and niggles and understanding of the situation that they need to just play through it. So that's where we're at with Peter. As I said, if he comes through tomorrow's session, as well as what he has done Tuesday, Monday, today, Saturday, then he's in with a fighting chance to be a part of the squad. But I'm reluctant to be sitting here and saying, Peter's going to play 90 minutes, because I think that would have a negative impact on him. So he's not quite where we want him to be fitness-wise, sharpness-wise, but he certainly adds a bit of quality to the attacking part of the team, and he gives the opposition defences something that little bit different that we've probably been missing in the last couple of games.
And St Mirren, obviously a club you know very well indeed. What sort of a match can you expect against them?
Well, listen, I know the majority of the squad that's there. I brought most of them to the club during my time. They're a group that's been together for a long period of time. Great, characters, great leadership qualities throughout the group. Stephen Robinson has came in and obviously put his own stamp on things as well and added a bit more quality to the group. And I'm delighted to see them doing well. For everybody connected to the club, I know how desperate they are for top six, and it's one of the bugbears of mine during my period there as manager, where we just came up short and missed out. I think it was goal difference in the end. I can remember that game at Hamilton where we conceded a late goal and missed out to St Johnstone by a point and ended up finishing 7th. So they've never done it before. It would be a fantastic achievement for Stephen if he was able to do it, and I would be so pleased for the group of players that's there, because they deserve it. But of course, on Saturday I'm working for Dundee United now, and my main focus is on us as a team and us as a club, and the job for me is to try and disappoint all those St Mirren supporters and of course get the better of them.
Thanks.
Hi Jim.
Hiya.
Just quickly, you've had a bit of time with the club now, and having watched the last couple of games where you've been in charge, you kind of see a different Dundee United on the pitch. How do you feel like they're responding to you?
Well, as I said, I think the attitude and the application of the players has been brilliant. They have been really receptive to what we've been asking them to do. I try and be as honest as possible without being overcritical of people. And in my first meeting with the players, we pretty much laid everything out on the line, and there was no comeback from the players. They're all nodding their heads in agreement that this group of players have underachieved. And they haven't consistently performed well enough, which is why we find ourselves in the situation that we're in. And of course there's two managers previously that have come and gone and lost their jobs off the back of it, but there comes a time where the players, the rest of the staff out there need to step up, and accountability needs to be across the board. And that's what I said. I'm here. If things don't go the way that I want them to go, then I'm as accountable as the next guy and as the guys previous and the group. But it's all about the group for me. It's all about the togetherness and the team spirit. And for me, it was important that I could look them in the eye and see that they were on board and in agreement that we had to do more. We had to work harder. We had to try and get fitter, get stronger, be a bit more organised. I don't like talking too much about previous results and previous managers, because it's a cop-out sometimes from new managers. You can start talking about where the previous ones have went wrong. I've got far too much respect for Liam Fox and for Jack Ross to even go down that line. As far as I'm concerned, I've got 12 games, I've got 10 games left now, and I need to pick up as many points as possible. And if we can turn this around, and I do believe honestly that we can, I think we're capable of it. I think we've got a brilliant squad of players, great infrastructure, facilities, as I said earlier, great support from above, from the directors and everybody else. There's no reason why we can't turn it around. And the fact that the players are on board and the rest of the staff are on board and believe that that's achievable is a step in the right direction.
Obviously you came in at really challenging times for the club. How are you enjoying the role?
Yeah, I mean, look, it is a challenge. People, as I said, during one of my first press conferences prior to Aberdeen, thought I was off my head to enter into this kind of situation. But I've never shied away from a battle in my life, and I enjoy the challenge, I suppose, of trying to turn this around. And people prior to me coming in had written Dundee United off and just said that they were in a bad place and there was no way of turning it around, but I didn't believe that. As I said, a great group of players. I know a few of them individually. having obviously worked with Jamie McGrath before, I know Charlie Mulgrew, I know a few of the lads on a personal level, and I know they're good boys, I know they're good lads. There's not a bad one in there that's enjoying the position that they're in. And I think the supporters, the reaction that I've had from the people that I've met who support the team, has been a real positive one. They see something in the Aberdeen performance and the Livingston performance that gives them a bit of hope, and that's the most important thing. The supporters have to believe that we can turn it around, and I hope that they'll turn out in great numbers again on Saturday like they did in the game against Aberdeen, and really get behind the team, because they can make a significant difference if they do.